Hi everyone, so today I'm here to talk about this new foundation and the new concealer from Juvia's Place. So super excited to hear that they were launching a foundation and concealer line. Foundation and concealer are kind of my thing, and also very happy to see that they were going to serve everyone. So they said they were going to go very pale and very deep, and they did. So I got the lightest shade. This is 740 Marisol. So the highest numbers are the palest and the lowest numbers are the deepest. I had let these dry a little bit longer than I intended, some of it, so I put a couple little fresh blobs, plus they were a little more sheared out than I wanted. I don't know what happened with this whole swatching situation. I was just having struggles. NARS Natural Radiant Longwear in Siberia, which is a new shade. Juvia's Place I Am Magic Foundation. This ended up being kind of sheared out, so I put a little bit thicker of a swatch up there. I think it might slightly oxidize, but really not all that much. L'Oreal Infallible Freshwear in 400 Pearl. This is also a color I can wear well along with the NARS. All of these I can wear fine as far as foundations go, because they're kind of the yellowy undertone that I like. And here's the little blob of the L'Oreal up there. I would say the L'Oreal is a tiny bit darker, but it's not a huge difference. Tarte Face Tape in 8S Porcelain Sand. Clinique Beyond Perfecting in CN 0.5 Shell, which is a new shade to the line. Makeup Revolution Conceal and Define Foundation in F 0.2. And Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte in 105. So for the concealers, Juvia's Place I Am Magic Concealer in J24. As you can see, this is super, super light. I swatched it. Up here is the Colourpop. If I was thinking straight, I would have swatched this next to it. This is Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02, which is, for me, the formula really doesn't work, and the color is definitely lighter than I prefer. And I feel like the Juvia's Place is really similar, and even maybe a tiny bit more neutral cool. e.l.f. Camo Concealer in Fair Warm. Cover FX Power Play Concealer in N-Fair 1, which is my favorite concealer. It doesn't look gray under my eyes, which I really appreciate. And it has really good coverage that's easy to get on my face. NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer in Chantilly. This is what I usually wear with foundations that are a little bit darker than the really fair things. And then again, here at the end is the Colourpop No Filter Concealer in Fair 02. As always, I will include the swatches that I showed today in this video on my blog. And if you go to my blog, you can browse through a whole bunch of foundation swatches. If you are looking for something in particular, you can search on there, whatever. I don't talk about it, but I do always have swatches on my blog whenever I do any sort of swatches within a video. And it says it's a velvety matte foundation, full coverage. Definitely agree with the full coverage claim. I don't wear full coverage. I don't wear my foundation at full coverage, I should say, and I prefer to sheer it out more. I have freckles and I don't want to cover my freckles completely. Not to mention, it would be hard to cover my freckles completely. I mean, I've got some really dark ones that would require color correcting or a shellac level of foundation. So I do try to go kind of light to medium coverage. This is definitely more on the medium end of the scale. I know everyone's definition of full coverage kind of varies. To me, I'm not sure what counts as full coverage when you can still see freckles through it. I don't know if that is really, does that qualify as full coverage? You know, when people don't have those sort of spots that really show through a foundation, I think the definition of full coverage for them is going to be different from people that have pigmentation, acne, that kind of thing. So it's just something to keep in mind. This layer, this kind of moderate layer on me might look like more coverage on you if you don't have spots that you're trying to cover. Not that I'm trying to cover my spots. Yeah, I've already talked about this. Okay, so I'm 39 years old. My skin is kind of, a jerk, to be quite honest. I have a really hard time getting any foundation to wear well in a certain area, just kind of around my mouth. So on my chin, above my lips, tend to go very patchy and cakey, and that's almost everything. Whereas like this, I'm always trying to fiddle with skincare, primers, powders, etc., trying to get the best wear I can. So I have oily areas, I have dermatitis that's always flaking underneath my lip, around my nose, and then I have just kind of regular dry areas like on my cheeks, and my forehead and my nose are oily, but they aren't acne prone in the way that my chin is, and they don't eat through the foundation and make it really patchy looking like my chin does. So I really do struggle to get any foundation to wear, you know, a full day without breaking down in that way. So as far as things I'm wanting the foundation to do, I have some pink in my cheeks and I'm looking to take that pink away. I am looking to lighten my face so that it matches the rest of my body. I have kind of cool yellow undertones that are fairly muted, and I also have kind of a rash on my neck that makes my neck some stage of red. It's either kind of light pink on the front here, or sometimes it's really red if the dermatitis is really flaring up. So I'm finding lately in the past like 6 months, where this neck rash thing wasn't a thing before, in the past 6 months or so, I'm actually able to wear foundations that are a little bit darker just because my neck is looking red, which makes it just look darker and not as pale compared to my face. So I do have issues applying foundation in general. Unless it's a very particular brush and a very particular foundation, I can't really use foundation brushes because it will settle into my pores and kind of smear away from everywhere else, and just look really bad. So that's why I did apply this all over my face with a sponge, because sponges with a matte foundation like this, a sponge is the only way to get it to look decent. I did try 2 different primers today, since this is the 3rd time I'm going to be wearing it for a full day. I know what happened the previous 2 days, and I tried it with no primer, and then yesterday I tried it with half my face with the Tatcha Silk Canvas and the other half nothing, and but using a different powder. So the first day I did no primer and with my Stellar Cosmic Haze finishing powder. Yesterday I did Tatcha Silk Canvas and the NARS Radiant, the NARS Light Reflecting Setting Powder pressed as my setting powder, which is what I was using. That was my favorite powder prior to the Stellar. And today I'm using the Tatcha Silk Canvas and the NARS on this side of my face, but I did a different skincare today. And I'm also using the Stellar primer, which is the Brilliant Primer, along with the Stellar Cosmic Haze finishing powder on the left side of my face. You're right. So the difference in skincare was the moisturizer I used underneath my sunscreen. I wore the same sunscreen. I always, when I can, when my skin is not too dry, I always use the Paula's Choice Resist Super Light Daily Wrinkle Defense SPF 30 because it is so good at keeping foundation on my face. If I use any other SPF, I get much worse wear, almost across the board. So that's the situation going on here. As far as the foundation, so far, we'll see how it wears today, but so far it will last. The best I've gotten out of it is about 7 hours. It looked pretty good. And then when I checked again at 9 hours, it had gotten pretty separated and patchy looking. And that was with the Tatcha and the NARS powder. So 7 hours is okay, but ideally I would like a good 10+ hours that looks good, though where my skin is right now, it is pretty hard for me to get a foundation that looks good that long, or something that fades away gracefully, as opposed to getting that kind of patchy separated look around my mouth. So it's kind of a struggle, and I don't have a ton of foundations right now that actually wear well that long. But like I said, my face is kind of a mess right now. So for the concealer, the tube is huge. You get a generous amount in here. It is 1/3 of an ounce, which is similar to Tarte Shape Tape, which was kind of the first concealer that really gave you a lot. But most of this bottle is plastic, so it could be much smaller than this. I feel like it's like, it could definitely be the same size as the e.l.f. and the e.l.f. still has a moderate amount of plastic around it as well. I have no idea how much is in the e.l.f. But so the amount you get is good, but I do wish it was a smaller tube because it's just so big. I mean, compared to my Cover FX Power Play Concealer, which is my favorite. So this is 0.33 ounces, 10 mils, and this one is same thing, 10 mils. So same amount. You know, I would rather, this is just a lot easier to deal with. Plus it's square, so it doesn't roll away, which I enjoy. The color on this J24 is quite a bit lighter than the lightest foundation, which is great for people that want to highlight. It can be tricky to find a highlighting shade when you have super pale skin, and so I'm really happy that they offered this one as a highlighting shade for people that are pale. If I were to do it all over again, I would definitely buy the next shade down just because I'm not looking to highlight under my eyes. I don't like the way it looks on me. I feel like my face shape isn't benefited by highlighting under my eyes, and I have such a hard time with the edge of foundation and concealer and going over the two that I just really want to have like the smallest amount of concealer I can under my eyes and have it really pretty much match up to my foundation. So this is quite a bit lighter. I went a little further down today just so that it wouldn't be this weird like kind of reverse raccoon looking situation, but this is lighter than I prefer, and since I don't do full coverage under my eyes, really pale shades like this tend to make that discoloration look a little gray, and that I don't think is the fault of the concealer. I think that is just the nature of having that like almost white, kind of off-white shade on top of discoloration. To keep that from happening, for sure, you can add more coverage or you can use a corrector. I was thinking about using a corrector today, but I did want to just show you what it looks like when you put it straight on top of some discoloration. You don't build up the coverage. It is going to have a little bit of that kind of cast of the discoloration coming through. So far, I've had a little trouble with it creasing, but you know, it's kind of early days in testing, and sometimes I just don't bring my powder up far enough. I have quite a bit of kind of those natural folds and creases right up close to my lash line, and sometimes I just don't get enough powder up there and things crease. So again, I don't think that's the fault of the concealer. Where it was further down and everything was set really nicely, I got similar wear with my favorite powders as I do with the concealers that work well for me under my eyes, things like the Cover FX Power Play, the NARS. Those are my two, like, I know I can count on them concealers right now, and I feel like this performs similarly. It's just the color isn't one that I would get again if I knew what I was doing. I did buy these. Technically, they launched the next day, but they were available to purchase in the evening the day before the launch date. So I went ahead, Dupe That had posted saying they were available, and I'm like, well, I know I'm going to buy this, so let's just buy it now. So I did buy them, and I got in there. I know they've been sold out, but they did. Juvia's Place has posted that they're going to be restocking, and I think giving information about when they would be restocking. So it might be easiest just to follow their Instagram page if you are looking to buy this and just get a better idea when it's going to be available. It is going to be at Ulta June 2nd, which is soon. That's like a week or so away. So if you want dealing with returns and that kind of thing, it might be, and to earn points while you buy it, it might be easier just to wait until it's at Ulta. I don't know what kind of stock availability there is going to be there, but hopefully you'll have a good chance of getting it when it launches at Ulta. Hopefully. That's what I hope. I don't know. I know some stores do have some Juvia's Place in store. I'm not sure what the plan is as far as the foundation goes. They do have like a foundation shade finder tool on their website, but it's more or less like, if you know what your undertones are, if you know if you're like fair, light, medium, deep, it's not going to really tell you anything that you don't already know. When I use the little tool, basically it just spit out all the things that were in that very light category. So that isn't super helpful. I'm sure as time goes on, there will be more swatches available online, and hopefully we can start to get a better idea of what, especially, you know, it's easy for me because I can just say, hey, I'm going to buy the lightest shade, and most likely the next shade down is going to be too dark, so it might be a little too light, and that is definitely something that happens to me. Nowadays there are more options in that super pale kind of category, and things that are too light for me, things like Estee Lauder Double Wear and 0N1 Alabaster is too pale for me. Too Faced Born This Way and Cloud is too pale. Those things just don't have enough warmth in them. And this one is kind of borderline. I feel like in person, outside, I have taken pictures of this outside several times. It looks good, but under these lights, and because I don't have as much light hitting my neck, I think that it can look a little white. So today I did put a little bit of bronzer on my cheeks. I picked up the Fenty Indasun Sunstalker, is it? Bronzer, the lightest shade, just because I had seen it on Geek Out of Water, Shelly's video, and it showed when she did the first layer and it was pretty sheer. I thought it looked perfect for what I want out of a bronzer, which is like very little. I don't wear bronzer every day, but if I do have something that's a little too pale, sometimes I will go kind of around the perimeter, and I didn't have any good sheer bronzers that I liked, period. I do have the Hoola bronzer I have the Benefit bronzer in Hoola Light, which I like the color of, but I usually, because it's kind of soft and powdery, I feel like I go from not enough to too much really fast, and I just have a hard time using it. This is a very firm powder, and so you can swirl your brush in and it doesn't kick up a bunch of powder, it doesn't pick up too much powder, and put on a layer and kind of look at it and be like, yeah, that's good. That's what I say. Okay, that's good. Like, can you barely even see it on my face? Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. So I did put it on my cheeks today, but I did not put it around my jawline. Lately, just because of the redness in my neck, I have been bringing foundation, like fully bringing foundation down my neck in a light layer. And I did do that, and I stopped probably around here, just so that there's a little bit more seamless look to it. If I didn't have the rash all the way on my neck, I might take it down further, but because that part of my neck is super duper reactive, I'm hesitant to put even like something like a foundation on it. So I think that's it for now. I'm really curious to see how this wear test goes today. I will say my skin, especially on this side of my face, was not doing well, and I could tell just from the get-go, before I even put foundation on, that the Tatcha Silk Canvas was sitting really poorly on my skin, like it was a little dry. I could see some flakes that I had to try to brush off. This part of my face right now today is more rough than usual, so I wouldn't be too surprised if things do not wear well, especially on this side of my face. And when I was applying it, you might see in the demo, it had settled into my pores on this side. It didn't at all on the Stellar side, the Stellar Primer side. But what I did was just, I flipped the sponge around to a part that was only damp and didn't have any product on it, and I kind of pulled it down, and that like pulled the foundation off my face, and then I just put more foundation on top of it. As far as the application goes, I do think that you have to kind of blend it out quickly, but it's not one that like sets into a film right away and can lift up on itself super fast. You have a little bit more time to kind of finesse the blend of the edges, whereas some things like the Hard Candy Glamouflage, I think, is the worst offender of this one. You have to put that one down and then never touch it again. If you touch it after you've initially stamped it down, forget it. It will lift up on itself and it will show all your pores, and it's just so bad. This one, is not like that. You do get a little time to kind of blend out the edges, add a little bit more product on top of it, but I have noticed if there is a time limit, if I try to go back and kind of futz with it, it will start lifting it up, cause it to settle funny, and just not look good, look a little patchy. But I have been able to build it a little bit where I put a little more product like on my nose, and it went on okay. It didn't look perfect, but I thought it looked pretty good. Up close in my mirror, I could see a few issues, but like if I'm looking at myself in my mirror that's a couple feet away, I feel like it looks really nice. So I did zoom in. You can see where things are just looking kind of rough on that part of my face that I mentioned. You know, I've got the flaking that's happening from the dermatitis. I'm struggling to keep this very particular line from flaking. I've been having luck keeping the corners of my mouth from flaking, but underneath my lip has just been peeling like crazy lately. I also do have peeling around my nose, and I tried to brush off any of the like larger flakes of skin so that I could give it the best shot. But a lot of times when my nose is peeling like this or my chin is peeling like this, no matter what I put on top of it, it is going to continue flake during the day. So it does feel like it sets down somewhat, though I have a pretty sticky sunscreen that I wear underneath this, and I felt like in my T-zone definitely there was still a little bit of tackiness, and the product did kind of, after when it seemed like it set, if I touched it, it would move off. So it doesn't seem to be transfer resistant on me, on my skincare, etc. So that's why I have been powdering it, and that keeps it from moving around once I set it down with a powder. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I know it's been a lot of talking. I've had a lot to say about this, and I'm not really sure why. I'm gonna be back. It is 10:22, so it's been like 8 hours. Today was just not a good foundation day. I got better wear out of this yesterday when I had the different skincare plus the Tatcha Silk Canvas and the NARS powder, and today both sides. So I noticed it started getting patchy. I mean, maybe even at 5 hours around my kind of problem area of my chin, it was starting to look patchy. Yesterday it lasted a good 7 hours before it started doing that. So we can zoom in and take a look. Just, this is typical for me when I'm having a problem with my foundation, be it skincare, the foundation itself, etc. So everywhere except my chin looks pretty good. I did not, this is the Stellar primer side, and it doesn't look super dry and did not crease. This Tatcha side is flakier and drier, but this side of my face is just going through a thing. I did notice that with the oils, it was kind of moving around on my nose a little bit. It probably would have helped to blot. You know, I'm somewhat oily. It's not terrible. It's, you know, it's okay. I feel like the concealer is looking pretty good. So it looks a little bit drier on this side, and this was the Stellar Face Haze, Cosmic Haze finishing powder side. And so it looks a little drier, but there's like no creasing. It looks pretty good. This side was the NARS, and I think I also used the Tatcha primer under here. And there's a little bit more creasing here, and it doesn't look quite as dry, so it looks a tiny bit more natural. But it has creased a little bit, like up in that area that I was talking about before. Other than that, everything looks pretty good. I mean, we can blot to see if it transfers a bunch. It does feel like it's gonna move around if I touch it before I blot. Let's see. Some things blot without transferring, some things transfer a lot when you blot, so. I feel like this would have done better if I had blotted earlier in the day. It's like there's a certain accumulation of oil, and then it's kind of hard to go back from that. So this is kind of typical problems I have with foundation. See how it's just cakey. It's not the worst I've seen, but it's definitely, I don't like when foundation does this. Most of my foundations do this after they've been on a little while. So, all right, so there was some transfer with that. Sometimes foundations look really worse for the wear after blotting, but I feel like this one looks fine. It doesn't look like the places that were just oily don't look a lot drier and cakier, which sometimes can happen after blotting, so I think that's fine. So overall, I would like to keep trying this, keep trying to find a way to wear it that it wears better throughout the day. I will say that a lot of matte foundations for me right now do this, where they just get really rough looking and like the back half of the day. The concealer I think is nice. I appreciate how pale it is. I mean, it might be the palest concealer that I have because I feel like it looked a little bit lighter than the Colourpop. Very, very similar. And you know, I'm just not a big concealer person because I don't use as much concealer. I don't use it for as many things as other people do. And so I can't really say like how super full coverage it is. The way I tried to use it, I would say I get a little bit better coverage out of my Cover FX Power Play concealer, but I also feel like that particular concealer just really works well with the way I use it and my skin. I have very dry, kind of textured under eye areas, and it's hard to get anything to look good under there. And then it also really depends on the color of it, because if it doesn't have enough like warmth to it or pink to it, it just looks gray, which is what we saw. But I feel like this one, I mean, it sits under the eyes way better for me than the Colourpop, and even a little bit better than the e.l.f. Camo concealer. So if you have more mature under eyes, I don't think it's a sure thing, but I think maybe it's workable. For the foundation, the coverage is really great if you're looking for a really solid, full coverage. I think that this could be one that you would like. So let me know if you have any questions about the foundation, the concealer, my face, etc. I would love to hear from you. Let me know if you're looking to try it out, or if you have tried it out already, what shade you used and how it's working for you. Skin type, all that good stuff would also be helpful. Yeah, so I hope you're having a wonderful day. If you want to see more videos from me, please do subscribe, turn on the bell if you want. I do a lot of foundation reviews, very pale skin type stuff, so I have the lightest shades of a lot of foundations. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch my video today. I hope you're having a great day, and I'll see you soon.